I've seen reports online from a number of different providers. The one I read first was from Forbes, but I know other people have reported on it as well. About an ongoing case. This is kind of like a decade old now, I guess, to do with Isai Scheinberg, a co-founder of PokerStars. The latest development in that is that he's basically been released on bail of $1 million in New York. Give us a bit of background to this, because it's quite a long-standing legal dispute, to my knowledge. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. And so back in 2011, in April 2011, the US Department of Justice unsealed a series of indictments against three big online gambling firms in PokerStars, Full Tilt Poker, and Absolute Poker, and at the same time also revealed indictments against a number of individuals who were leaders of those various companies and involved in payment processing as well. And so there were two people on the Isle of Man who were named in those indictments. One was Paul Tate, and the other was Isai Scheinberg.
So what came next, really? Because it's from my fairly primitive understanding, basically he had to stay away from American soil.
So over the ensuing years, every other party to the dispute has settled, including the companies. So back in 2012, PokerStars settled with the US Department of Justice, and as part of that settlement acquired Full Tilt Poker, which was previously their competitor and had been operating out of Albany. As a result of that, that brand and all the customers were repaid in full, and that was that settlement came to fruition under the Scheinberg leadership of the company, and that was really a testament of their commitment to the industry and commitment to the customers, even of their competitor. So as a result of that settlement, every single customer of their competitor was made whole. And that was an incredible and remarkable settlement at that time, to about over $700 million. In the ensuing 9 years, each of the other people have also settled in various ways, and now it looks like Isai, who's made such a wonderful contribution to the Isle of Man, appears to also be nearing a settlement with the US Department of Justice.
What's the alleged wrongdoing in the first place here?
Sure.
From the American government.
Sure. So the charges essentially relate to the operation of PokerStars, and they relate to financial transactions and also allegedly the conduct of online gambling services. And so one of the things that differentiates online poker compared to sports betting or casino games is that in a game of poker, the operator, the house, is not a participant in the game. And so the background in the US legislation relates especially to customers betting against the house, most obviously in the context of sports betting. So if you, as a customer, bet on Manchester United to lose or Liverpool to win, then that's very much a contest against the other operator. Whereas in the game of poker, PokerStars was providing a place for customers to play against each other.
And wasn't this an argument to do with whether or not poker was a game of chance or skill? Does that come into this discussion?
Yeah, so then that's another factor. And so the charges and the laws broadly relate to being in the business of gambling. And so then that comes down to two. And I don't want to provide legal advice to anyone who's considering offering online poker in the US, but broadly speaking, the business of gambling relies on the definition of two words. Are you in the business of gambling? First of all, if you are providing a place for people to play against each other. Second of all, it relies on a definition of exactly what gambling means. And so in most cases in the US, most jurisdictions around the world rely on staking something of value and having the opportunity to win something of value. And then the third aspect is whether these transactions took place in the United States. And so the company and under the Isle of Man regulatory environment, those transactions took place at the PokerStars server hosted by Manx Telecom over in Douglas North. And so, there's a number of technical legal arguments to be had about that. And it'll be interesting to see how that pans out.
And obviously the rules vary a bit from state to state as well in America, so we won't go down that route. But part of the reason I wanted to speak to you is you sort of jumped to the defence of Mr. Scheinberg online. He's obviously somebody you knew through professional links. What's the most recent development, and what do you think is going to come of this?
Sure. So it appears that while Mr. Scheinberg was in Switzerland, it appears that the US government initiated extradition proceedings against him. And as a consequence of that, or subsequent to that, it appears that he's returned to the United States to contest the charge at this stage. He appears to have pled not guilty
on a voluntary basis. He's returned, it's been written that way, but
that's certainly one interpretation. I don't think it's clear what the exact order of events are from the public interpretation, but certainly at this stage, I understand that he's pled guilty, and I've had the great fortune of knowing Mr. Scheinberg for a few years, and in literally every single interaction I've ever had with that man, he conducted himself with the utmost of integrity, and he's one of the most outstanding human beings I've ever had the fortune of meeting. I know from many other people here on the Isle of Man, there are so many things that he's been doing behind the scenes, even after leaving PokerStars, to contribute to the community.
You mentioned him as a contributor to Manx life, and I think of one example. The very high-profile chess competitions which take place on the island, just to pluck one out of the air. It's certainly a role which has had a big impact on lots of people across the island.
Yeah, absolutely, and a lot of other things, behind the scenes. And what's remarkable is that he's a man who's always conducted himself with such privacy, and I'm sure he would be embarrassed to hear such nice things being said about him. But he has an extraordinary number of friends throughout this community. He's touched the lives of many different people here on the Isle of Man, and unreservedly made our island, our community, not just our economy, but our society a better place as a result.